of November, 900 hours Central Africa time on this Thursday. Jumbo Africa. I'm Elvis Presslin. Now we'll be with you until 12 o'clock today. Today we focus on the Public Enterprise Minister, Lynn Brown, that has spent 7 hours denying that she ever met the Guptas when quizzed by legislators about the state capture in parastatal scandal last night.
She really must deny all that was said about her, especially what was being said by Tsotsi himself. But we want to find out from you, do you get a sense that those under oath at the Eskom inquiry are lying?
Well, we'll take a look at what you are telling us in a short while. So far, we got the numbers in: 261 votes. 7% are saying no, Kendall. Only 7. But 93% are saying yes. They get a sense that these people are lying to us.
Yes, I love the hashtags on this particular one. Very good. Michael Bigams Tole and Rangwani Marumo. Rangwani Marumo has got something to say, and all he's got to say is, yep, that's it.
Well, you can keep them coming. We'll read them as we continue. We've missed the other one, but we'll bring it back a little bit later for you. But there's also a question of the day. We focus on the incoming interim Zimbabwean president, Emmerson Mnangagwa, the crocodile. The man is in place, right? He's in for the swearing in tomorrow after returning to a hero's welcome last night in Harare.
Yes, the man known as Ngwena by the Zimbabweans. Now, can he, Zimbabwe's interim president, Emmerson Mnangagwa, bring about political and economic stability?
That's the question we pose to you. Let's take a look at what you are telling us. This one coming from Michael Bigham says he will bring economic stability. It will come at a price, though, because he has already signed a deal with the devil, the United States and its allies. Some of us know that the CIA was behind the silent coup, and General Chiwenga, Mnangagwa, Muchwanga, the war veterans leader, were paid to dethrone Uncle Bob. Well, there's a conspiracy theory there.
Other flip side of that coin is Chiwenga went to China a week before, a couple of days before the coup itself. So Tabo Quincy Peta says Mnangagwa must get some tips from the former President Mugabe. Only tips from 1980 to 2000. I don't think he needs tips from Robert Mugabe. He was right there alongside him all along.
Exactly. And of course, that's another question. Can he make a difference to Zimbabwe, being the man next to Robert, who ruled for 37 years?
And right now, we're dealing with the really sad story about how Clement Kebo Manyapelo has passed away.
One of our very own here at the SABC. Yes.
A stalwart in the South African broadcast scene. The man is gone, and we're paying tribute to this man, Kebo Manyapelo, who passed away on the 22nd of November 2017. And we would love to get your thoughts on this stalwart, on this legend, and we've already got some in from Kidumeti, for example.
He says, I remember him on his breakfast show and Mamepe in Motsomeko on Motsoding FM. He was energetic and forever full of jokes. He will be greatly missed. Rest in peace, Tebo.
I loved how he also spoke in pure Setswana. Unkabetsipo says, Mekebo Manyapelo, may his soul rest in peace. He will be greatly missed by many soccer fanatics. He was indeed a great commentator, and I also loved his fluency in Setswana.
Well, there you have it. Keep them coming. We'll read them as we continue. But as a sporting question, of course, scoring goals in lost art in South Africa. That was yesterday we asked that question.
We're asking it again. Is scoring goals a lost art in South Africa? We're asking you this particular question because, yes, yesterday Coach Pizzo and Micho complained about it, but last night, 3 goalless draws. 88 men left their loved ones, put on their soccer boots, went to work. 88 men played soccer for 90 minutes each, and only 2 of them managed to score. That's a problem.
Thought-provoking, says. Goal scoring is a national crisis. Misho can't be right, but the solution lies with them coaches. Their fear of conceding, poor development. There's restrictive football, lack of faith in raw talent, etc. All contribute to the goal drought that we currently experience. And of course, some are suggesting that all these mercenaries and coaches that's coming from outside into South Africa, that's killing our own soccer in the township. If a coach
gets you to the last third, you need to do your job and score the goals. Marcelo Posa says, yes, we've lost the art. Due to political soccer, we should just pick a squad fresh from start. We don't run out of problems in our sport, do we?
Yeah, no, we need to pick up our soccer as well, like we would pick up the rand, as some suggest. Well, that's where we got to leave it for now. Let's get down to business and take a look at your news headlines. A war of words erupted between the Public Enterprises Minister Lynn Brown and parliamentarians during a parliamentary inquiry into the state capture at Eskom. All eyes will be at the live Esidimeni hearings this morning to see if the suspended Gauteng Mental Health Director Dr. Manamela will show up or face arrest. And the stage is set for the swearing-in of Zimbabwean President-in-waiting Emmerson Mnangagwa tomorrow. Those are your headlines. But before we get to the news, let's find out from Kendall Makamate what's happening on the sports front.
I've got a personal gripe. Besides us paying tribute to Gqebo Manyapelo, I've got a personal gripe about what you might have been saying about our football from last night, and that's where it is really for us today. There is a drought. Good morning to you. This is what we've got for you in the sports today. So no less than 3 goalless draws in South Africa's top-flight football last night as the goal drought continued. And PSG came from behind to slaughter Scottish side Celtic 7-1 at the Parc des Princes in the UEFA Champions League last night. As of course the 2017 Ashes is underway at the Gabba in Brisbane, with day one evenly poised after England won the toss and chose to bat. I'll have a whole lot more detail on these as well as other stories at 10:40. Do stay with us. Elvis has got the news.
Thank you, Kendall. Top story this hour. The Public Enterprises Minister Lynn Brown has been quizzed by legislators about state capture and the deteriorating corporate governance in parastatals that fall under her department. Now, Brown spent 7 hours denying that she ever met with the Guptas and their associates, her role in suspending 4 executives and business ventures of her alleged partner with Eskom. Now, she was answering questions during the ongoing probe into state capture at Eskom by Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Public Enterprises.
So, Chair, finally, it seems what we are confronted with is denial, denial, denial. But just one
ANC MP Pravin Gordhan summing up Brown's denials. She denied being captured and she denied any knowledge of her alleged partner's businesses with Eskom.
Do you know that she owns a Range Rover?
I know that she owns a Range Rover.
When was it bought?
I don't know.
But do you know where was it bought?
I don't know.
You do not know if the Guptas were involved in buying that particular car?
Earlier, former Eskom chairperson Zola Tsotsi told the committee he met Brown at her official residence. She was with Tony Gupta and Salim Issa. Brown denied that too.
Salim Issa and Bich Gupta, Tony Gupta, were not at my house when Zola Tsotsi arrived. In fact, I really deny that.
But MPs were not done with her. Gordhan produced a proof from Denel, which was doing business with Salim Issa's VR laser company. But again, the minister had no knowledge of the document.
That's hearsay as far as I'm concerned. I received a memo that says...
Who's hearsay?
It's your hearsay. I haven't seen it.
I'm reading from an affidavit.
Well, I haven't seen it.
No, we're going to make it available to you. I'm sure your staff can make it available. So your only problem is that you haven't seen it. But it could well be true.
No, that's not my only problem, Mr. Gordhan.
What is the problem?
After several hours of accusations, counter-accusations and denials, Shivambo, quoting from the script, reminded them that they took an oath and that they might rue the day they lied in the name of God.
Last time I checked, Exodus 20 verse 7 says that, "Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord your God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him or her guiltless."
The probe into Eskom's corrupt activities continues today. Manelisi Tubase, SABC News, Parliament.
The suspended Gauteng Mental Health Director, Dr. Manamela, is expected to return to testify at the live Esidimeni hearings today or face arrest. Manamela failed to pitch up on Tuesday, citing illness. A suspended warrant of arrest was issued pending her attendance today. At least one family member of a victim has called for implicated senior health officials to be charged, possibly even with murder.
143 patients died after being moved on the instruction of the top officials, including Dr. Manamela and former Health MEC Qedani Mahlangu. Many died of hunger and dehydration at unlawful NGOs. Several witnesses have implicated Dr. Manamela of issuing illegal licenses and forcing ill-equipped NGOs to take in patients. Families want these implicated officials arrested, hinting on a murder charge on dolus eventualis.
Do you think that officials like Mr. Musinochi, Mr. Tabani, Dr. Manamela, Dr. Silibano could reasonably foresee that if they moved patients from where they were to NGOs which were unready, those people could relapse, could suffer harm, or some could die?
I'm absolutely sure, Justice, that they could see, they knew what could happen.
Well, there you have it. That's happening today. Of course, it's going to continue as soon as it does start today. We'll go there live. But remember that we're asking you a question today. It's on Zimbabwe, the crocodile, Emmerson Mnangagwa. He is the man in charge. And we're asking you whether or not he will bring about political and economic stability to Zimbabwe. That's the question. Let's take a look at what you're telling us on the Facebook page as well as on the Twitter handle. Nkululeko says, is to speak the truth about Google Round and make peace with the Bela Nation. That is what he needs to do. Colin says, watch the euphoria by the Zimbabweans ends in disappointment when the country gets snatched by the British. Not that I so wish. Well, those are your comments. Please keep them coming. We'll read them as we continue. Now, the incoming interim Zimbabwean President Emmerson Mnangagwa is preparing for his swearing-in tomorrow after returning to a hero's welcome in Harare yesterday. The 75-year-old former vice president fled to South Africa after being expelled from ZANU-PF party by Robert Mugabe before Mugabe's resignation on Tuesday that paved the way for his triumphant return. Mnangagwa has appealed to Zimbabweans to work together to repair the economy.
Exactly 16 days ago, I received a letter firing me from government of the Republic of Zimbabwe as Vice President.
It is the 16 days that would forever change the course of Zimbabwe. Robert Gabriel Mugabe's 37-year-long reign was over, and the man Mugabe showed the door to is now taking over his seat. Evidently, Emmerson Mnangagwa enjoys overwhelming support, but is cognizant that this will not be enough to take Zimbabwe out of its turmoil.
We need also the cooperation of our neighbors in SADC. We need the cooperation of the continent of Africa. We need the cooperation of our friends outside the continent. That we shall achieve. I am already receiving messages of cooperation and support for us to grow our economy.
On Friday, Zimbabwe ushers in a new commander-in-chief, just a few months before Zimbabweans head to the polls.
Now, Zimbabwean President Robert Mugabe's resignation has been widely welcomed. Now, there's been no show of regret at his removal. Now, as we've seen, early reactions to the news that Mugabe had resigned, bringing the curtains down on his 37-year-old reign, were greeted by hopes of better times for the nation's people. The people of Zimbabwe, human rights groups, international community are all hopeful that the Southern African nation now have the opportunity to forge a new path free of the oppression that characterized Mugabe's rule. Tomorrow, Zimbabwe sees the ushering in of a new interim president for the country. The man that Mugabe fired as his vice president, Emmerson Mnangagwa, will be taking over from him. As the country now flies on the wings of hope, we talk to Zimbabwean retired judge Chris Greenland, who joins us in our Pretoria studios, about some of the challenges on the road to a new and better Zimbabwe. A very good morning to you, sir, and welcome.
Good morning to you and to your viewers.
First and foremostly, let me just check with you. Overall, what has happened in Zimbabwe up until now, what do you make of all the shenanigans?
Well, I don't know if it's right to call it shenanigans. I think it's a momentous occasion and presents enormous opportunity for a country that has been in dire trouble for a very long time. So I welcome it, as did hundreds of thousands or perhaps millions of other Zimbabweans.
Now, some has called, or it's called the military intervention a coup. Some said that it's not a coup, it was a soft coup. But some are suggesting that the entire process was illegal. Thoughts on that, as a former judge?
Well, I don't know if you can call it a coup if the action that was taken by the military was against one man, and that one man then stands or sits in front of the cameras and tells the whole world that he's still in charge of the military and that he's going to preside over the ruling party, and then declines to carry out the wishes of the military and the people to stand down. I don't see that as a coup at all. Certainly it's robust military intervention on a political issue, but it can't be a coup because the intention to take over all the structures of the country was absent.
Well, it is a moot point now whether or not it's a coup, but do you think that Robert Mugabe will remain in Zimbabwe?
I really don't know. That's anybody's guess.
Now, he's 94 years.
I think it would be very unsafe for him especially for his wife, to remain in Zimbabwe.
What are the possibilities for him, Judge? He's 94 years old. If he goes, would it be South Africa, or would there be other countries that he would consider that he would go to, or, or what do you think?
I really don't know. You know, that's a political question, and I'm not a politician. I'm more interested in social justice as regards the future.
Let's take a look at that social justice. Moving forward for Zimbabwe, what are some of the key challenges that they need to address?
Well, the key challenge is this. Our people have never been free from the time Mzilikazi invaded the region. They were not free under Lobengula, they were not free under Cecil John Rhodes, they were not free under British administration, they were not free under Ian Smith, and they certainly have not been free under Robert Mugabe. So the challenge is to free our people for the first time. And we need to understand what freedom means. And if you want me to define that, I'll do that.
Please do, Judge.
Yes, freedom is not what perhaps the EFF in South Africa imagines it is, that it's critical, that assets and money and power determine what is freedom. Freedom is when people feel that they are free. When every human being feels that he or she is realizing his or her potential. So the man that is raising chickens on his farm and successfully selling them at the market is free. He's as free as Strive Masiwa, who is a multimillionaire and a businessman. He's as free as me sitting as a High Court judge, because each of us feels that we have realized our potential in a fair environment.
Now, tomorrow we'll usher in a new interim leader for Zimbabwe. The vice president, who Mugabe sacked, is taking over from him. Emmerson Mnangagwa has been in the military, and he was with Mugabe all the way, and he's, after all, at one time a very close ally of Mugabe. Should one be concerned about this, though?
I think, yes, one cannot help but be concerned. But I give him full marks on the start that he has made. Firstly, can I commend him on giving off-the-cuff impromptu speech using better English than Donald Trump, even though English is not his first language. But more importantly, it's the content of what he said. He ascribed this huge, momentous change to the people. He downplayed the part that was played by the military, and he characterized it as a success for the people of Zimbabwe. And he was inclusive as opposed to exclusive about the way forward. He correctly stated that the success of any socio-economic program was dependent on cooperation with the region, with the continent, and with the rest of the free world. So I give him full marks on that start that he made.
Mm-hmm. Now, we're asking our viewers today, Judge, would like to pose that question to you. Do you think that Emmerson Mnangagwa can bring about political as well as economic change in Zimbabwe?
Yes, I think he can. You know, he's a highly intelligent human being. He's also educated. And he has a simple choice here. And for an intelligent person, one would think that he would make the right choice. He either is going to perpetuate the oppression of the past, or he's going to respond to the wall-to-wall call for freedom that he has seen our people demonstrate commendably without trashing the place, and give them true freedom, and thereby become an iconic leader. You know, Nelson Mandela had the same challenge when he emerged as the leader of South Africa, and he responded in a highly commendable way. I think Emmerson Mnangagwa has that challenge. And I don't think, just on a common sense basis, why would he want to end up in a situation that has played out before him, hated by everybody in the country and hated by the international community? I don't think that that's a choice that he's going to opt for.
Mm-hmm. Do you perhaps see the possibility of a multi-party smooth transition?
Well, I think it's a must. I think it's an imperative. I think that there has to be a transformational model put in place, and that transformational model has to be inclusive. And the incoming president needs to understand that not only does he have access to incredibly talented internal human capital, externally as well. I've had the privilege of traveling to America, United Kingdom, Australia, New Zealand, Germany, and South Africa, Namibia, and Botswana. And in all those places, there is a huge consensus that Zimbabweans are extremely talented people, and they have an incredible work ethic. So this transformation has to be inclusive. And as I've said, Emmerson Mnangagwa has already displayed that is inclined towards an inclusive culture, not an exclusive culture like Robert Mugabe.
Now, Mnangagwa appears to be making all the right noises at this time. He's already reportedly engaged with the international community, including the World Bank, for Zimbabwe to be included back into the fold, and also called on Britain to extend certain offers and support that they have attached to it, calling it an old friend. What do you make of all of this?
Well, I think that, it's common sense. If this country has to be uplifted, if it has to stop being a pariah state, which it has long since become under Robert Mugabe, that is the route that he has to take. That is the option that he has to adopt. As I've said, now perhaps repeatedly, that he has to adopt an inclusive culture. This business of Tony Blair, keep your country and I'll keep mine, while you are begging the European court to allow you to travel to England, is so nonsensical. So I've said that I think that Mnangagwa's indicated culture of inclusiveness regionally, continentally, and internationally is highly commendable.
The fields of agriculture.
And I hope that Zimbabwe will be Zimbabwe will be readmitted to the Commonwealth, and that targeted sanctions will be dropped, so that a new spirit of cooperation can be established between ourselves and the free world, led by the United Kingdom.
Now, we have seen land grabs that cause turmoil and instability in that country, Judge. The fields of agriculture and mining, do you think that they will be opened up again to the white community and international companies?
Well, if people are truly free, they will accept each other as equals under the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Zimbabwe is a multicultural, multi-ethnic community. It's made up of many tribes. It's also made up of white people. is made up of coloureds, Indians, Jews, Greeks, Portuguese, and if the right culture of freedom is embedded, we will get nation building, which we haven't had. And that will be part of the transformational process. And people can learn to go ahead, take the road towards a bright future together as a nation, not fragmented and divided in terms of the Mugabeism.
Judge, I thank you so much for your time and joining us on the newsroom.
And I thank you for the opportunity.
That was Chris Greenland on Newsroom talking to us from our Pretoria studios on hopes for a new and improved Zimbabwe. What do you make of it? Because that's the question we pose to you. Emerson Mnangagwa, the crocodile, they call him. Do you think he'll make a change? We'll come back to some of those comments a little bit later. Meanwhile, the U.S. Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, says that Mugabe's resignation has given Zimbabwe an extraordinary opportunity to set itself on a new path. At least 50,000 Zimbabweans are believed to live in the United States, and many of them have been celebrating the events of the past few days.
Excitement today! Zimbabwe, here we come!
Thousands of kilometers from Zimbabwe.
We are so happy.
And celebrating a new direction for the country they still call home. For some Zimbabweans living in the United States, following the story of Robert Mugabe's demise has taken its toll.
For the past 2 weeks, we were not sleeping. No one was sleeping. The reason being the time difference between us here and back home. So the only way for us to keep in touch or to keep abreast of the news was to stay awake.
Some of this crowd have never known another Zimbabwean leader, and some have never even lived in Zimbabwe. But with Mugabe gone, they are optimistic about the future and see a chance to start a new life back home.
We love it here in the U.S. We're blessed to be here. It's been a very good place for us. It's been kind to us. We have jobs. We're able to support our families. But now we have options. We can go home.
The U.S. government didn't celebrate as long or as loudly as these Zimbabweans, but it did express cautious optimism about the future.
The people of Zimbabwe have firmly voiced their desire for a new era to bring an end to Zimbabwe's isolation and allow the country to rejoin the international community.
There's been no comment yet from the Zimbabwean embassy about the departure of Robert Mugabe, and I'm told the ambassador is currently outside of the US. But with new leadership in Zimbabwe, there is fresh optimism about the direction of the country and the contribution it can make to the international community. Harry Horton, SABC News, Washington.
Coming back home, the Water and Sanitation Department is threatening to cut water supply to 30 municipalities across the country in 2 weeks' time. The department says it is owed more than 10 billion rands in outstanding debt. It says it's been negotiating with the municipalities for the past 2 years to pay their bulk water debt. Thousands of South Africans could spend Christmas without water. The department says it has been trying to resolve the issue for 2 years, and currently 59 court summonses have been issued and 121 municipalities are involved in legal collection processes, but this has not helped. The taps could be closed on the 8th of December next month. Another ANC leader has been shot and killed in KwaZulu-Natal. Stembi Somhlongo was ANC Youth League Deputy Secretary for Moses Mabhida region. He was also a delegate to the party's December elective conference. Mhlongo was shot at home early this morning and later died in hospital. It's believed the attackers pretended to be police officers. The African National Congress has extended the deadline for branches to nominate presidential candidates by a week. That's to this Sunday. The Free State will be holding its elective conference over the weekend.
With just 3 weeks to go, yet another assurance the Nasrec conference will not be derailed or postponed. The Northern Cape, the Women's League and the Youth League are the only structures to have finalized nominations.
We're over 90. If we wanted, we would just close, because we're qualified for the conference. We exceeded the threshold by 20%. we still want that remaining part of the 10% to get further branches to the conference of the ANC, so that everybody participates in the conference of the ANC.
All appeals from disgruntled members at BGMs are being dealt with on the spot.
The teams of the NEC are in the provinces dealing with those who are having appeals and objections. And we say to them, once you listen and you make a determination that branch X must rerun, take that decision on the spot and direct that branch on the spot to go and rerun its BGM.
Leadership elections are scheduled to take place on December 17th, the second day of the conference. Montlengani Dipoko, SABC News, Johannesburg.
South Africa's Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa has taken a lead in party nominations for the next leader of the ruling African National Congress, the ANC. Now this is according to a poll by the Institute of Race Relations. The IRR said its data suggested 74% of the ANC branches had made nominations and cautioned that it had not been able to corroborate these findings. It says Ramaphosa has secured the support of 65% of the branches tallied so far. It found that Dlamini Zuma had secured 30% of nominations and that the ANC Treasurer General Zweli Mkhize received most of the remaining 5% of the nominations. President Jacob Zuma has appointed the Divisional Commissioner for Protection and Security Services, General Kehla John Sithole, as the new National Police Commissioner with immediate effect. The presidency says Sithole, who was born in Standerton in Mpumalanga, brings a wealth of operational and management experience to the South African police services. Sithole is a career policeman. He was promoted to Lieutenant General in 2011. Now, looking at our poll for the day, of course, remember that we want to test with you. Do you get a sense that people are lying under oath at the Eskom inquiry? Now, so far, we have 261 votes in. 93% of you are suggesting that they are lying. 7% are saying, no, they're not. So let's take a look at what you're telling me. Lottie Latoka rather says, yep, it's hard to believe the denials there. Tapelo says, they lie consciously. Wait until late you hear the Guptas when they get subpoenaed. They'll deny even knowing who Zola Tsotsi is. They learned from JZ. He's denied everything. Those are your comments. Please keep them coming. We'll read them as we continue. And remember, it's your views, not those of the SABC. But you can keep them coming. We'll read them as we continue. Our picture of the day comes from Black Skin Gold Soul. Rest in peace, man. I grew up listening to Tebo Manyapelo every morning. This really breaks my heart. Of course, there's a question to that as well in our sporting question today. How do you remember him? You can also let us know. Kendall will bring it to you a little bit later. Our comment of the day comes from Safest Dear Lynn Brown. Hashtag Lynn Brown. The mere fact that so much theft, corruption and mismanagement happened under your watch in so many SOEs is enough to justify that you'll be fired, let alone whether you are implicated or not, which it appears you will be. Fall on your sword. Hashtag Eskom Inquiry. That must be a sore one in our courts today. We first start in the Eastern Cape. The pre-sentencing of the convicted murderer Christopher Panayioto continues in the Port Elizabeth High Court. Panayioto and his co-accused were found guilty of the abduction and murder of Christopher's wife, Jayet Panayioto, in April 2015. Still in Port Elizabeth, Pastor Omotoso is back in court with a new legal team for a second bail application. He's accused of luring young girls to his home and demanding sexual favors. In September, the charismatic Nigerian pastor Timothy Omotoso failed to present any new facts to the Port Elizabeth Magistrates Court in his second bail application, and he was kept behind bars. Magistrate Tandeka Mashi, who presided over both of Omotoso's bail applications, found that the Durban-based televangelist new legal counsel headed by Advocate Alwyn Rousseau SC had failed to present any new facts to court. In Gauteng, the Constitutional Court will today hear arguments on whether the Competition Commission can use its investigative powers to determine whether a channel licensing agreement between the SABC and MultiChoice amounts to a notifiable merger. The 2013 deal gave the pay TV company the right to air 2 of the public broadcasters' channels. The 5-year contract amounted to over 550 million rand. The Commission had requested certain documents which MultiChoice said were irrelevant or did not exist, and the SABC said were lost. When he tried to use its powers to interrogate directors of these companies, it was said that they could not use these powers as an order by the Competition Appeal Court limited it to a desktop inquiry. Now, those are some of the stories we'll keep you updated with and the developments of those cases. Let's now cross live, as promised, to the live Esidimeni arbitration process in Parktown.
The remaining patients will be transferred to Gauteng Department of Health Psychiatric Hospitals and it would seem that was the plan. That is how the department planned to deal with the patients that would be moved from Life Esidimeni. Firstly, was to transfer those who were ready to go home, to discharge them to their homes, and to transfer others to the psychiatric hospitals, and to transfer others to NGOs. Was that your understanding also?
Yes.
Thank you. Then the next point, what are the identified hospitals and or premises where they will be placed? And then the response is Viscopis Hospital, Stekfontein Hospital, and Cullinan Care. Unused part of Tshwane District Hospital, Transvaal Memorial Institution, Pinar, and Old Johannesburg Hospital, as well as existing NGOs. Was that also your understanding, that those would be the institutions that would be used?
Yes, Council.
Of importance here is that in 11 August, which is the date, rather in 18 November 2015, which is the date of the letter, it would seem that the department had planned to use those institutions that are read out as well as existing NGOs. Am I correct?
The witness has already said so. Yes, that's the understanding of the plan.
Thank you, Justice. And then Roman figure number 3.
Can I come in there? I said yes before you were coming today, as of the 18th of November. That one, I think I still need to hear. What is your question related to that? The yes is that I'm familiar with the document, but as at this date, can you carry on with that?
If you go to page 1056, the page before the page that I'm reading now, you will note that the date on the letter is 18 November 2015. Right at the top right corner. And you will also note on page 1058 that the letter was signed by former MEC, Ms. Qedani Mahlangu, on 18 November 2015. So my proposition to you then is that this was the position, or this was the plan, as at 18 November 2015. Is that so or not?
That's correct.
Thank you. That's all that I wanted to establish. And then how many beds will be available for them at each hospital or other premises identified in above? Name of hospital or other premises identified and the number of beds. Viscopis, number of beds identified, 416. Stekfontein Hospital, 230. Cullinan Care, 148. Tshwane District, unused part, 60 beds. Transvaal Memorial Institution, 151. Pinar, 38. Old Johannesburg Hospital, 150. Existing NGOs vacant beds, 214. Additional NGO beds, 377. In total, 1,784 beds were identified. Is that the case?
Is that the case? You mean, was that the plan?
Was that the plan, to use those beds from those institutions in that order?
Yes.
Thank you. And then if you read now Roman figure number 4, the question was approximately how many of the 2,000 patients currently at Life Healthcare Esidimeni are assessed as requiring long-term care and supervision in a protected environment? The answer is 1,671 need long-term care, which can be provided at the NGOs and homes. Full stop. NGOs will accommodate 113 patients that need medium-term care, but are categorized as high-level functioning patients. Now, the question here is, was the plan to transfer only 113 to the existing NGO, 113 patients? Was that the plan?
But counsel, you have to, that need medium care, medium-term care. So 113 would be those who need medium.
Justice, it says NGOs will accommodate 113 patients that need medium-term care,
yes,
but are categorized as high-level functioning. But the gist of the question is that NGOs was going to accommodate 113 patients. Or maybe the witness can clarify if that was the case.
Sure. The question is long-term and short-term.
Yes.
And that 113 seems to relate to short-term. Medium-term, I'm sorry. But the witness can just confirm whether that was the plan in November 2015.
Thank you, Justice. I must say, the letter is not written by me, although I know the contents, and I'll be unable to comment on many of what has been written here. It's not written by me, and it's not signed by me, and it was never in my in my office, and I think I may not comment on this information that has been written here.
Fair enough. I will then request us to go to file number 7.
I think, counsel, it might be helpful to indicate to the witness that this was a response to legislature questions, which were made known and read out publicly by the MEC, meant to convey the plan. I thought the question is not whether or not the witness wrote the letter, but whether or not
that was the plan.
This coincides with the plan.
I will demonstrate that shortly, Justice, if you give me a moment.
Okay.
Yes. File number 7, page 2658. Yes, that should be the page. 2658. If you could just put your finger on 2658 and run with the document up to 2667. Yes. At the bottom there, this seems like this was a presentation in the form of slides. Am I correct? Am I correct,
Can you come again?
This looks like a presentation which was in the form of slides. Am I correct?
Yes, Council.
And then at the bottom it says, thank you, Dr. M.J. Manamela, Director, Mental Health Services. That would have been you.
Correct.
So are you the one who presented this document?
Yes.
Yes. If we could then go to 2661.
Well, can we know when was it presented, where was it presented, to whom it was presented?
When was the presentation made, Doctor, because it doesn't have a date of signature? Do you remember?
There is a date here, 15 July 2015.
Okay, so it was presented on that date. And to whom was it presented to?
It was presented to the executive.
Okay. Now, if you read from page 2661, there are two.
Which executive is that? You mean senior management?
The executive of the department starts with the chief director, the deputy director general, the HOD of the department, and the MEC. And as I'm still on this point, I want to put it clear to justice that I'm not appreciating, as it was said, I'm the commander in charge. I was just called to present. So I'm not the commander in charge. The executive, I went to present to the executive as I have indicated.
Oh, we'll get to that just in a moment. Thank you. 2661, there are two options that are listed there. Can you briefly tell us what were those options about? Were they options about moving patients from life Esidimeni? Am I correct?
The two options was to identify hospitals that still has
sorry, Doctor, if I may interject. These were the options in relation to the patients that were at life Esidimeni when the contract is terminated.
Yes, it was the presentation that indicated
what
are the options. And yes, it's like it was still a map. You know, we're still mapping on what needs to be done.
Yes, yes. No, I understand that part. And then if on option number 1, it says bullet point number, the last bullet point, which starts with the 3. The 3 psychiatric hospitals and existing NGOs will take the bulk of mental health care users, while the other hospitals will increase or open acute service. The other users has to be discharged to home. That was the first option.
That's correct.
Yes. So this ties in with the letter of the MEC dated 18 November 2015, that the plan was to transfer the patients to the psychiatric hospitals and some to the existing NGOs, and then to discharge some home. That's the point that I wanted to make.
That's correct.
You agree with that? Yes. And then option number 2, it says some hospitals like Old Jimmiston, Mamelodi, and Tshwane hospitals can be used as NGOs for chronic users. Am I correct?
I agree with it.
So basically that was the plan. Now, if you could go to page 2662. It would seem that you wrote hospitals, number of beds identified, status of the wards, and the budget. And then you indicated Viscopies, number of beds identified 416, Sterkfontein 110, Cullinan 148. All of them, they needed to be renovated. But the total was 670. Am I correct?
You are correct, Council.
Now, if you move to 2665, just in the middle of the page, it says total available beds, if renovated, 971. And then there's an issue of budget for Vescopi, Stegfontein, and Cullinan. Am I correct?
Yes, I just saw it. You're correct.
Yes. So the point that I wanted to demonstrate is that when the contract was terminated with Life Esidimeni, the department planned to absorb most of the patients to the psychiatric institutions and to discharge some home and others, to send others to existing NGOs. That is also apparent from your own presentation. Am I correct?
Can you come again, Council?
The point that I wanted to make is that from the presentation, this presentation that we just read, and the letter of the MEC, is that the plan in respect of the patients that were at Life Esidimeni, it was to send them to the psychiatric hospitals and to transfer some to the existing NGOs and to discharge some home from these two documents.
Yes, but the two documents are not the same. The one to legislator has indicated the number of beds. That was the question you were asking me. The number of patients that will go to NGO. My presentation was presenting that some patients will go to the NGOs, some to the hospitals, some to the existing NGOs. It doesn't have how many numbers, but we work towards how many beds that can be the one that we can plan around. That's number one. Number two, at that time, it's 15 July, there was no letter of termination. We were still talking on the 20% reduction of beds at Life Esidimeni.
On page 2665, now you have 974 beds available if renovated, and this is still the psychiatric hospitals.
Yes, Council, and you qualify it if renovated. 976, if renovated. You are correct.
And then if you go to page 2667, or rather before you get to 2667, 2666, at the bottom again it says NGOs. Normal discharge to NGOs will continue. Currently, there are 116 spaces for the identified NGOs during the targeted reduction. At the bottom. The last sentence.
Yes, you are correct with this one. And this was meaning the empty NGO beds in the NGOs that we have licensed for that period 2015-2016. At this time,
which were existing NGOs.
Yes, there were no new NGOs. There was no letter of termination. We are counting the beds almost every month. We're checking the beds in the NGO so that we can see how we're doing in terms of community services. This is the number. It's not the number that is indicating at the legislature question, which was presented after the termination letter or notice was sent.
Yes. So if you go now to page 2667, on the conclusion, the last sentence, if renovations are done at the moment, we can accommodate a total of 1,164 currently. We will continue to establish beds either from NGOs, closed hospitals, and also to ensure that users the users are rehabilitated and discharged home. So now, in 2667, you have now 1,164 beds. I assume from the psychiatric hospitals, am I correct? You've identified?
Yes, Council.
So you intended to transfer 1,164 to the psychiatric hospitals?
It says either from NGOs, closed hospital, and also in the hospital that is acute. It's not saying we'll take 1,164 to the hospital. It's saying hospital or NGO and closed hospital that is appearing on the legislator response. That's what it says.
Are we reading page 2667?
Yes, I'm
at the conclusion, the last sentence there. From where it says if renovations are done at the moment we can accommodate a total of 1,164.
Yes, I'm at it. Because this total, according to my presentation on the 15th June, includes the totals of all the identified unused building under the infrastructure of Gauteng Department of Health. So that's why you see the number of beds as the total.
Yes.
That includes Jimiston, Pinari, Johannesburg, for some of them that are indicated here.
Yes. And on Monday, you testified that the renovations didn't materialize, didn't go well, were not approved.
Can you also raise your voice?
On Monday, you testified that the renovations were not done. They didn't succeed.
Not all. Not all was not succeed. On Monday, you will ask question. Before I answer, you ask another one. Not all these hospitals that are listed here were renovated. Even the psychiatric hospital were not renovated, all the wards that were there for this process.
Okay, maybe let me ask the question again then. Of the hospitals that you had listed and you had hoped that they would be renovated at the end of in March, which ones were renovated?
Vescopis was renovated, Sterfontein and Kalinen were renovated.
And how many patients were transferred to Vescopis?
I have to check because I don't remember. I've been out of the service for a year, but totally, all our hospitals took 358 patients.
So you did not meet the target of 1,164?
The target of 1,164.
Yes,
you need to look to 667. You need to look at the target indicated for Vescopis, Kalinen, and Sterfontein. If you talk to that total, I will agree. But if you include the total of the unused hospital, then we cannot talk on that related to the hospital that I just indicated. You can add the hospital, and then we can take it from there.
If you go back to page 2662, please. You had identified 670 beds from the 3 hospitals that you mentioned.
Yes,
did you meet
correct.
That? Did you meet that target?
Yes, that's what we didn't meet that.
What do you mean by did you meet the target, Council? I'm not sure.
Did you manage to transfer 670 patients to those institutions?
We have managed to transfer 358 patients, if I'm correct, to this hospital. And also, mind you, the Cullinan one was also the one that was 100 beds at Cullinan, were the beds that were used by the NGO. So it means you can add 358 beds plus 100 beds. This can be the beds that we managed to renovate.
Then if you go
I don't understand that either. Beds that you managed to renovate?
We managed to renovate the beds in Vescopis Hospital, Sterfontein, and Cullinan.
Okay.
And that does not mean that all the beds that are here, we managed to renovate all of them, because there are other variables that were to be considered for us to be able to renovate each and every hospital bed as indicated.
So you transferred patients to the psychiatric hospitals.
The arbitration process continue at Life Esidimeni. We'll go back there shortly, but let me remind you, at 10:00 hours Central Africa time, your headlines. A war of words. A war of words erupted between the Public Enterprises Minister Lynn Brown and parliamentarians during a parliamentary inquiry into state capture at Eskom. Gauteng suspended Mental Health Director Dr. Manamela, currently giving testimony before the Life Esidimeni arbitration hearings. And the stage is set for the swearing in of Zimbabwean President in waiting Emmerson Mnangagwa tomorrow. Those are the headlines, but let me find out from Kendall Makamate what we can expect in the sports news.
All right, thank you very much, Elvis. While we still mourn the passing of Clement Amanyapi, we've got quite a lot also happening on the sporting field. This is what we've got for you for today.
Pressure from Pilani. Zulu's not a bad ploy. Gustavo Paez. And if Kune can make saves, then Pule can make them too.
There were 3 goalless draws in South Africa's top flight football last night as the goal drought continued. And PSG came from behind to slaughter Scottish side Celtic 7-1 in Paris in the UEFA Champions League last night.
Parc de France rose to its feet, expecting a hat-trick. But instead it's Dani Alves who rifles it in.
The 2017 Ashes is underway at the Gabe in Brisbane, and Australia already have England under the pump on day 1. All this and more we've got for you for later on. Should we go to a sports bulletin? For now, Elvis has got the news.
Thank you, Kendall. Top story this hour, the incoming interim Zimbabwean president, Emmerson Mnangagwa, is preparing for his swearing-in tomorrow after returning to a hero's welcome in Harare yesterday. The 75-year-old former vice president fled to South Africa after being expelled from the ZANU-PF party by Robert Mugabe before Mugabe's resignation on Tuesday that paved the way for his triumphant return. Mnangagwa has appealed to Zimbabweans to work together to repair the economy. Now, for the latest on the story, we now go to our reporter Aldrin Sampear, who is in Harare in Zimbabwe. A very good morning to you, Aldrin. Can you describe for us the mood in Zimbabwe this morning ahead of the swearing-in of Emmerson Mnangagwa?
Well, good morning, Elvis. People going about their daily business here in the CBD of Harare. Of course, as you know, that all expectations are high ahead of tomorrow's swearing in of Emmerson. It is indeed an historic day. It would be indeed an historic day for Zimbabwe, but for Zimbabweans as well. And yesterday, when he arrived from South Africa after being in exile for the past 2 days, for the past 2 weeks, since now former President Robert Mugabe fired him after he came back to ZANU-PF's headquarters to a hero's welcome, people celebrating. He made a quite important call, calling on various neighboring countries, saying that SADC must support Zimbabwe, saying that the continent in its entirety must support Zimbabwe as well. But quite interestingly, though, is that if you look at the AU statement, the AU issued a statement welcoming the resignation of Robert Mugabe and also saying that the and also praising Zimbabweans for the
Well, it seems like we've lost Eldon there for in fact, there's a technical problem. We're going to see if we can get him back a little bit later to give us an update on that story and see if we can continue this discussion to find out what is the latest there. Number of questions as to where is President Robert Mugabe, where's his wife, of course, the First Lady, former First Lady Grace Mugabe, and of course we're going to see if we can get back to him. Let's just take a short break and see if we can connect. In fact, let's just go back to Eldon. Eldon, sorry, we've lost you there for a second. Can you just pick up where you left off? What is currently happening?
People are moving around.
Okay, apologies. I actually didn't realize that the line got cut here. We're now speaking to Sandra, who is a Zimbabwean citizen who is excited about this moment, and just quickly asking her about what this moment means for her, that Zimbabwe will now have a new president, although it will be an interim president just for a couple of months ahead of the elections.
Well, this is quite an exciting moment for Zimbabweans. We've been waiting for this moment for the past 37 years. We've had the same person, and now there's someone new. We are so excited. We can't wait. We want to see what he's offering us as Zimbabweans. So we're just so excited. There's so much peace. We're working freely. And for the first time, we're talking of politics, you know, freely.
We were actually chatting about that earlier on as well, and you were saying that even in the buses, even in the taxis, how people speak freely about the state of politics and mentioning Robert Mugabe's name, and some even speaking ill of him. And this time around, things have changed, because back then there was that fear that was instilled in the people of Zimbabwe.
Of course, we're so scared to talk about the president and the political situation in our country. Because there were so many people threatening. We get threats even in Combis when you talk about the political situation in Zimbabwe. But now we are so free to talk about it. We are so excited. It's exciting.
Well, indeed. What would your message be to Emmerson Mnangagwa if you could sit down right with him this very moment ahead of his swearing in? What would you say are some of the issues that he must tackle firstly?
Well, we would ask Emmerson to review the health facilities in our country, the education, and review the minister with the current Minister of Education. Yeah.
Well, you see, Elvis, that's the interesting thing. She speaks about a reshuffling of cabinet. And because it is the prerogative of the president, and when the president is sworn in tomorrow, many will be looking very closely to what he does to his cabinet, because what we should remember is that in that cabinet of former President Robert Mugabe, there are those who are very close allies to him. Remember that even the time when ZANU-PF had a meeting and they called on Robert Mugabe to resign, and there was a cabinet meeting that was supposed to have taken place, and not all cabinet ministers arrived for that meeting at that time. However, though, the reports indicated that around 5 ministers were present for that meeting. So quite clear it is that Robert Mugabe still had allies within the cabinet. What does Emmerson Mnangagwa what would he have to do right now heading forward, considering that you have these people as well? And of course, these calls from various citizens saying that some of these ministers must be arrested and they must be prosecuted. One of those people is the second vice president, who is now the acting president, Mpoko, who is in Japan, expected to land tomorrow, or rather was expected to land here in Zimbabwe tomorrow, but we are receiving reports that he will not be heading straight to Zimbabwe, and he'll be seeking asylum either in Zambia or in...
And as we speak, we've lost Eldon again, but we're going to get an update because we want to find out about the swearing in, of course, what time that'll happen, but we'll see if we can get him back on the line a little bit later to give us an update. Meanwhile, as you know, the live Esidimeni arbitration process is continuing here in Parktown in Johannesburg. Let's go back live.
In November 2015, she goes and tells the nation, here is the plan. Okay, and you've been asked questions about it. Did you furnish her with the information that she finished to the legislature and to the nation.
Yes, Justice.
Yeah, done.
Can I qualify that? Can I qualify that?
Yes, you may.
The presentation was
Remember
made...
always to be brief,
yes,
but you may
I'll be brief, Justice. Presentation was made in July. From July, we've been working. There was a termination letter that was sent out as well. By that time, I believe when she presented in November, she has been presented with number of the existing NGOs. So I want it to be worked on in that context.
No, that's fine, but you are the source of the information that a political principal would give to Parliament about your department, right?
Yes, Justice.
Okay, Council.
Thank you, Justice. Thank you. I'm moving on. Now, on Monday, you testified that the first meeting that you had with the NGOs was on the 30th of November, 2015. Am I correct?
30th. 30th. I think, I'm not quite sure. You said that the October or November, 13, somewhere there. 13. Yes, somewhere there. I'm not sure of the number because I didn't have the document.
You know, the point that I wanted to make is that the new NGOs were an afterthought, were never part of the plan. I will demonstrate that to you just now. For example, if you go to page 2669.
Let's put it to her. Let her respond to that. NGOs were an afterthought. Let's pause there and let the witness confront that.
Thank you, Justice.
Submission, thank you.
On the two documents that I've shown you, it is apparent that NGOs, the placement of patients to the NGOs was an afterthought after the plan of renovations failed.
No, Council.
Now let's go to page 2669 on the same file. The document starts from 2668. It looks like it was a presentation which was Mrs. M. Muriwane on the 3rd of February 2016. Do you know her? 2668.
2668.
Your hand is on 2668. Do you know Mrs. M. Muriwane?
Yes, I know her.
Was she working with you in the department?
Can you raise your voice,
How do you know her?
I know her as the Chief Director for Johannesburg Region, Region Health Services.
Was she part of the team?
She was part of the team.
Okay. So if you go to page 2669, I'll just show you something in respect of 3 NGOs. So the first one appears on page 2669. That would be Takalane Home. Can you see Takalane Home?
Yes,
and Takalane Home, it says type of service, child residential. Current license, 60. Vacant beds, 40. Possible expansion, 100. So Takalane, according to this document, they were licensed to take 60 patients, and it was a child residential facility. Do you agree? And in February, they are telling you that there is a possibility of expansion by 100, which means they will double the size in a month. And now if you go to, do you want to comment there?
Yes, you say they will double the size in a month.
The size of the facility.
It cannot, the presentation is not mine. I may not fully talking to it, but to my knowledge, immediately the termination letter was out, or even before, we were also working on it. The fact that they were only going to expand by 100 beds in February may not be correct.
Okay. Now, if you're on the same file, if you go to page 2404, backward, 2404. Are you on page 204, 2404?
Almost there. Yes, I am.
That's the license that was issued by you. Am I correct?
Yes, you're correct.
And you issued the license for 200.
Yes, you are correct.
And even though they had indicated that they were a child residential facility, on the license it doesn't say that they should operate as a child residential facility. It simply says residential facility.
Yes, can I explain that?
You may.
All the mentally intellectual patients coupled with physical
mentally intellectual patients,
intellectual disability patient, mental intellectual disability patient coupled with physical disability, they are termed as children because of the mind capacity. And when you go to Takalani now, you won't find that when we say children, there are maybe less than 5 children. So I wanted to
all of them are,
that.
Irrespective of their age, they are termed as children?
Yes, they are termed as children.
Okay, I'll just show you one thing again. If you go to page 2681 of the same file.
I thought you'd ask the witness, how did she arrive at the number of 200 on the license? I thought that's where we were going.
Thank you, Justice. I wanted to combine the 3. I'm just going to pick 2 more.
Well, let's ask her now.
Yes.
Short question.
How did you issue the license for Takalani for 200 when they had specifically told you that they had 40 vacant beds?
Thank you, Justice. According to the presentation by Mrs. Muriwane, he said they will extend by 100. And they are the one who submitted a request for 200 licensing.
So you issued it based on the information that was given to you without checking it?
I didn't say without checking it.
Did you check it?
Yes.
How did you check it?
I think I said that yesterday. How do we check?
You can say it again. How did you check Takalani? How did you check that they had moved now from having 40 beds to having 140 beds within a space of a month?
First, let me correct when we say within a space of a month. From the beginning of the project, the district identified the NGO beds. Then they evaluate or audit those NGO beds. If they are new NGO, we send our team from my office, the NGO manager, to go and assess again with them. Thereafter, they submit the beds in their NGO to us to do 2 things: to provide license, to recommend for budget, even if they've already recommended the budget.
In an ideal world, but was that done with Takalani?
It was done.
Okay, let me prove something to you. If you could quickly go to page 2698. At the bottom of 2698, there's a list of NGOs which were visited by doctors for assessment, and Takalani is not one of them. It says doctors went on the visitation to NGOs to do the walkabout to assess the readiness of the NGOs, name, NGO name, date signed off, ready, not ready. Takalani is not listed among only 5 NGOs were visited according to this document.
You are correct. Can I qualify that? Because when we went to the NGOs to visit them, it doesn't mean that all of them the doctors visited, because we don't have enough psychiatrists. But the coordinators, mental health coordinators in the district visited. Fortunate for Takalani, myself and Chief Director and Professor Mosa, we did also visit Takalani. I also have a copy for Takalani. But by the time this presentation was made, these were the ones that were visited already, maybe at that time, because we...
Did you visit Takalani?
Myself, yes, I did visit Takalani.
How did you find the conditions there?
The Takalani, when we visited there, the place was eligible to accommodate the patients.
Did it have 200 beds?
We visited Takalani before they had the patient, but they had the beds.
No, did they have 200 beds? It's a very specific
The day I went, they had 200 beds, but they still can add beds if the space is available. But I went, myself and Chief Director
From a
and Professor.
vacant beds of what, of 40, they now had added 100.
Yes.
And you saw that before you issued the license?
They added the bed, and it was sent to me that I should issue a license.
How many people died at Takalani after you issued the license? How many bodies were taken out of there?
After, I'm not quite sure of the number because I left
let's
earlier.
look at the ambush report.
What I know is that I'm not quite sure of the exact number.
Well, I'll give you the exact number and I'll refer you to it. And I want you to look at it. You go inspect it, attend an NGO of 40 to 200, and you tell me it was all okay. And people start dying once you had moved them there. Look at Ella.
It's 57, Justice.
Beg your pardon, Council?
It should be Ella 57, Justice.
Thank you. Let's just cut to the chase. I don't understand how you could say you went there, it was all fine, and you sent people there and they die. Why must I believe it was all fine and people start dying? Now, if you look at page 8, as numbered by the Ombud, or page 8 on the left corner, there is a graph there, or a schedule, if you like, of total death per facility for the period 2016 to 2017. Can you see that?
Page 8, Justice.
One of my assistants will help you get there.
I found it.
Have you found it? If you look at the bottom of that schedule, it shows you Mosego Takalani. Can you see that? In March, 1 person died. In May, 3 died. In June, 6 died. In July, 5 patients died. In August, 5 died. September 1, October 6, human beings lost their bodies, their lives. And there it runs and goes. Can you see that, Doctor?
I see.
Do you care to add up those people who lost their lives there? After you issued a license, you allowed 100 people to go and live there.
Justice.
Yes, I'm listening.
Yes. It's written Mosego Takalani. I indicated on the first day that it was said in this proceeding that the document we provided to the ombuds, he didn't use them. Takalani is not Mosego. I visited Takalani. Takalani is Takalani for children. Mosego is psychogeriatric. So if you put them together, obviously, the number will be high. But if you put Mosego, how many died at
Okay,
Mosego?
you know better, T. That's what the Ombudsman tells us. How many people died at Takalani?
Okay, Justice, I'm not saying I know better.
How many
But-
died? Just answer me.
Yes, I can, I can check all of them here, but I think this number is inclusive of Mosego.
How
That's
many
what I'm
died
saying.
at Takalani that you visited?
I left the beginning of this year, but plus minus 7 or to 11. I'm not sure about Takalani alone. Now we need to look at how many died at Mosego.
You see, the state where you used to work have admitted this document as a true reflection of the facts. And we are told there is a number of people who died after you issued the license, allowing them to take 100 patients there. So I want to know how many people died. Did you track? Did you go and look and follow?
Yes, I can check in my file, but what I'm saying here, Justice, is that Takalani has their own death and has got its own premises. And Precious Mosego is another NGO. And I went with Professor
Owned by the
Mosenchi.
same people?
It's not the same people. That's another area where people didn't understand and didn't want to listen when we tell them what is happening. I'm not protecting anybody's justice. I'm telling the fact and the truth as I was asked. Mosego is in the West Rand area. Takalani is in Johannesburg. That is why the chief director of Johannesburg went with Professor Mosa. Professor Mosa cannot work in West Rand. There are others in West Rand.
Can you give me the number of people who died after you licensed
I don't have...
patients to be taken at Takalani that you know?
At the moment, I'll be unable to give you the exact number.
Will you give me the number of people who died in both Mosego and Takalani?
I cannot...
After you issued the license?
I cannot be in a position to give you that number for now because the numbers of death also piled...
In any event, why did you terminate the contract when you did not have enough NGOs? We've been going backwards and forwards this morning about how many NGOs were there or not. Now, why did you terminate the contract when you did not have beds equivalent to the patients you wanted to move around?
Thank you, Justice. In the first place, I will say I didn't terminate the contract, but we worked towards establishing those beds. That's why from the beginning, we included the NGOs. That's the answer I can give.
No, but in July, you made a presentation to your executive. And
Yes,
its title is Esidimeni Project.
Yes, that was the project.
In it, you told your executives how many beds you will be able to find, right?
Yes, Justice.
And what beds were they for?
They were for the patient, like you said so well in July. They were for the patient that the Gauteng 2020 vision strategy wants us to discharge 200 patients from life. On top of that, I alluded last that there was a 20% that was added and life Esidimeni declared dispute. So we were working on that in July. But September, we were told, we knew that even if we reduce 220%, in this country, in this province, we'll still need more beds.
Did you have enough beds for the people you're going to get out of life Esidimeni?
At that time?
Yes.
At that time, according to the plan that we had, we will have enough beds.
Did you have enough beds for the people who were receiving care at Life Esidimeni when you started the placement process?
No, it was a process. You said it so well, Justice. We were starting. We didn't have enough beds by that time.
You did not have enough beds?
By that time. But we knew where we were going to have beds before the time of final taking the 20% and taking the 200
No,
beds.
I'm talking about the time from in May and June of from March of 2016, Did you have enough beds for the people you're going to chuck out of life as Esidimeni?
At that time, we didn't have enough beds.
Why did you do it? Why did you start a project when you have not prepared for it, for the destination of these vulnerable people?
Justice. The process was ongoing. It was not a done deal to say today MEC and the executive, these are the bids. The process was ongoing. I alluded the day I was here that we started early January, February, after we noticed that the letter was sent to Premier to say we're going to reduce by further 20%. We started. And by that time of July, we were still in that process.
When they terminated the contract, you were the person who was making the presentations. Did you tell them we don't have the beds?
I told them we don't have the beds, but these are the beds for the hospital that if they can renovate it. I think the presentation says it so well. If they can be renovated, we can even have more beds.
Did not renovate all of them. Why did you still chuck the people out of life as Esidimeni?
Can I ask the judge to say we didn't chuck some words? We didn't chuck anybody out.
We have long agreed we're not going to heckle, right? We're not going to heckle, please. Let's show respect to the witness. Okay, why did you place the people out of where they were?
The termination notice was given to Life Esidimeni by the executive, and we were clearly informed that by that time we need to have placed the patients.
Did you agree with the termination?
When you look at the...
No, you hear the question. Did you agree with the termination of the agreement with Life Esidimeni?
Can I answer and qualify that?
You may qualify as long as you answer first, please.
The leadership gave instruction. Myself, as the director, I had to check if that instruction is in accordance with the law that governs the function that I'm carrying out.
Which leadership gave the instructions?
Gauteng Department of Health, leadership, executive.
Who in the department? Let's call them by name.
We have got political head, Ms. Matlangu, the HOD, Dr. Silumani, the DDG, clinical, Dr. Libete. We also have other chief directors.
But who gave the instructions?
The letter
Why did you call them by name, please?
The letter was signed by the HOD, Dr. Silumani.
And who gave you the instructions to start drawing a placement plan and a transfer plan? Who gave you those instructions?
We were called in a meeting. The first meeting, we even had Life Esidimeni managers, and then my unit, because that's where the termination...
Who gave you the instructions, please, by name?
By name.
Who gave you the instructions? Which senior of you gave you the instructions? That go ahead now with the placement. Go and remove them from Life Esidimeni to wherever else. Who gave those instructions?
The MEC and the HOD, because that's how they gave instruction.
So you were acting on instructions?
Yes, but like I said, I must qualify. I look at the act, I look at the policy, I look at the regulation, and if in my capacity as a professional, if I found that those acts and legal document does not allow, I will say no. And I will qualify it, because the Public Service Regulation Act also say if you cannot carry out a delegation because of certain reason, you must make your leadership aware.
You're so right. I'm so happy, Doctor. You're right, and you know what the law is there. You have no duty to implement unlawful instructions, isn't it so?
Yes,
Your duty is to listen to your superior only on lawful instructions, isn't it so?
Yes, Justice.
Yes. Counsel.
Thank you, Justice. If I may also quickly take you to page 2680, please. File number 7. It would seem this was a presentation by Mr. Msunori on the 26th of January 2016.
Which file? The very same one I
7.
have, Justice?
Yes, file number 7.
Okay, page?
2680. Yes, that's the presentation that was done by Mr. Msunori on the 26th of January 2016. Do you agree?
Yes, I agree.
Now, if you go to page 2681, I'll focus on the first table. I'll focus on the 2 last names appearing there. The first one is Makabongwe, severe profound child residents, and they indicated that Justice, if you remember very well, Ms. Ethel Ngube testified that the daycare center that she was running was initially known as Makabongwe. Yes, so this is Precious Angels.
Yes.
She said she had the capacity to take 114, possible expansion 114, total number of beds 114 by 1 April. Now, she gives this information on the 26th of January 2016. Can you see that, Dr. Manamela?
Yes, I can see it, Council.
So, and then type of service, child residence. Now, if you just keep your finger there, go backward to page 2397. I'm not going to belabor the point we spoke much on this license on Monday, but I just want to show you something. So this is the license that you signed for Precious Angels, the same organization, on the 1st of April 2016. And you gave her permission, or you said you licensed her to take...
I'm sorry, I don't think the witness has got to the license. The license is on which page?
2397, the same file, Justice. Backward.
Have you got there?
Yes, I'm there.
Yes. The question is that on the 26th of January 2016, she requested to offer services of a child residence and to take 114 patients. 2397, she is licensed to take 150 patients, male and females. Do you want to comment?
Justice, sorry, my pardon.
Well, let's start off by saying, is this the license that you issued?
This license issued was not for Mangabongwe. We're talking 2 different things.
No, she testified that she was running a daycare center which was known as Makabongwe.
Yes.
But for the project, for this project, she then submitted documents as Precious Angels.
Yes,
yes.
Correct.
So when she requested the license, it was for Precious Angels, based on the information that she submitted. Makabongwe and Precious Angels is one and the same organization. She was requesting a license for Precious Angels for 114. That's the gist of the question. You granted 150.
The document that my office received from Tshwane was 2 sets of documents. The one for the one that supposed to be at Kalafong, and the one for Magabongwe. So they are 2 different things. It's not the same.
Did you inspect Magabongwe?
No, I didn't inspect Magabongwe, but Tshwane Mental Health Care Unit did, and submit requests for licensing for Magabongwe.
On Monday, we established that the license, but Justice, I will leave that one because we dealt with it at length.
Let me ask a few questions about that, Counsel. Did you issue the license for Precious Angels? On page 2397, I can see your signature there.
Yes.
You did.
Yes.
And you followed the prescripts of the law and the regulations?
Yes.
Under the
Justice,
Act?
Yes.
How did you arrive at the number 150?
That's what the district has given us, and the area, you have alluded that on Monday that she already started something in the renovation at Calafon. The area was counted by the district that it will accommodate 150 patients. That's what this license was saying.
And did you again consider these people to be children with profound intellectual disability? Is that why you issued the license to her?
Yes, as it is.
Because she was running a child daycare center.
Yes.
Why did you issue her this license?
On the reason that I just explained, that when we talk about intellectual disability, those patients, even if it's 40 years, they are still having the mind. I'm sorry to say that they are also people, but their mind or capacity or cognitive
she said
is
to
still
us she had
like
never
that.
looked after people, adults with that kind of impairment. That was her evidence. And she says she never occupied premises appearing on this license. And
Yes.
she said she had no 150 beds.
Yes,
How
Justice.
did you or your team supply you with this information to issue a license?
When the team has recommended that they've got 150 beds, and I confirm with my team in the office, I had no reason to refuse that because the project was still also going on. But the fact that she didn't manage to, she has never managed the people who are adult because she managed the ones where her child is another thing. But when this was submitted to my office, it was like she's going to have 150 at Calafon, but she never got 150. But that was licensed for her for that financial year.
Why did you issue a license for males and females at the same premises and place?
We do have males and females at the same premises.
Had you checked to see whether the females will be safe? It's issued with males in this at Ms. Nube's premises?
The team, as they go for the license, they check. If a person or a manager said, I will have males only, it's his decision. If she's going to have males and female, we say, let's see where the female will be. Let's see where the males will be. And I believe that's what Twane did. And then we also agreed. Same like in hospital.
Let's look at the consequences of this due diligence you say you have done. How many people died at Precious Angel? After you issued the license and permitted her, Ms. Nube, to take this number of men and women, how many people died thereafter? Because that is what this inquiry is about.
Yes.
Tell
yes,
me.
Justice. How many people died there? By the time...
After you issued the license and authorized her to take on patients with mental disability, intellectual disability.
Yes, I may not arrive to the right number, but I'll give you the number I knew before I left the office because this is accumulative. By the time I submitted to MEC for the legislature, I think there were 18 patients who died, and I know other patients died after that.
Okay, let's tell you what the Ombud tells us. Go again to
LR 57.
LR 57. Then you can see the consequences of your licensing.
Page 8. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Precious Angels appears, it's the fourth one from the bottom. And if you add up those numbers, you get 20. 20 patients died at Precious Angels. 7 died in July, 8 died in August, 2 died in September, 1 in October, 1 in December, and 1 in January 2017. So 19 died in 2016. Do you agree with the findings of the Ombud?
Yes, Council. But can the Justice ask a question? Before I answer it, you came with another question. I've answered yours. Can I ask Justice question?
Do you want me to repeat my question?
If you
You
wish
issued a license to Ms. Nube, who told us that she had no skill in looking after people of this category, and when she got the license, she had no beds for them. And she never occupied the premises reflected on the license. And thereafter, she received patients and they died in her hands. You told me just now that it was all perfect. Your team went out and checked and it was all ready to go. That's why you issued the license. So I say, what do you have to say about the consequences of your permitting her to look after people who were so vulnerable and now they have died? That is the question. What is your response to that?
Justice, the consequences of what happened will also need to be clarified. In the first place, I don't know the post-mortem result. What I know is that people died. It was heartbreaking for me. And another thing I know is that when my team assessed the place, they came back and said the place is suitable. And when we went in other area, we found that there were some loopholes. And finally, she told the team that she's going to move to Linwood. As for that, I don't know what I can say from what she told you, because she told you what she thinks. And what she told you is not what she told us. And it's not what the team that went wrote and submit to me and say, can you give license to this person?
So did your team lie to you?
I don't know. I don't know, Justice.
Did you have a duty to check in law to make sure the facts are correct?
I checked. I only went to Precious Angels after we were placed, because my role was a strategic role. There were people who are placing patients. There were people who are identifying the NGO. I didn't go to each and every NGO.
Dr. Manamela, if you had not authorized Ms. Nube to receive patients from Life Esidimeni, would she have been able to do so, authorized to do so?
If she didn't have license, she couldn't do that.
And that she could get only from you?
She can get only from me through the district.
And the consequences of your issuing that license we know now. Were disastrous. People died. What is your response to that?
Yes.
You are the authority who is required to protect life by regulating who you issue license to, checking the facilities, making sure that they are appropriate and fit for purpose. Did you do that here?
That's what my team did. And the document that I had said that at my level, I cannot go to each and every NGO. But if I query the NGO, I can go if I have time to go. But I said to you on Monday that there was a person in charge of all the NGO, that even if I'm not there, all the NGO, excuse me, in the province, she is in charge. So if the district are saying these are the beds, how do I say these are not the beds if I don't have report that say these are not the beds?
And why do you give Ms. Nube all these men and women who are so vulnerable and you don't give her any money? She told us so. For 4 months, She didn't get a penny from your operations. How did that happen?
I think the project team had finance people. So some of the things, I'm the director for mental health services. My first priority is to ensure the quality of services. However, the finance, I need to check if they do. But I'm not the one who's giving the money.
We have evidence that you ordered people to go and take patients from Life Esidimeni, man. And you took them to another place with no resources. And for 4 months, Ms. Ncube doesn't get a penny from your department. Why didn't you make sure so that these people don't die?
That's what we were trying to do, Justice.
Why didn't you make sure? Why didn't you do it?
We were busy trying to make sure. We were busy trying to make sure. I told you what we did for the first time. Let me go back. Allow me, Justice. When I realized that the first month has gone, the people are not paid, we called the NGOs.
No, but not asking the question, ma'am. Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, but
before you moved the people, before you gave instructions, and the evidence you gave instructions for people to be moved, why did you not make sure your finance department is ready to fund the NGOs?
Justice, the information that I gave instruction is incorrect. The termination letter is the one that gave instruction. It cannot be me who gave instruction. That is incorrect.
Okay, tell me, why did you move the people, I'm not talking about termination, instruct that patients be moved when the NGOs had no resources and your department did not pay them?
At the time of movement, the team went and assessed the place, and they found that there were resources, and the resources depleted as time goes on.
The resources from where?
From the NGOs, from everywhere where we place the patient. We also place the patient in Kalinen Hospital.
Did you expect Ms. Ncube to use her money to look after mental health care users?
It's not my expectation to do that, but the NGO, they don't get full time like Life Esidimeni, full payment like Life Esidimeni was. They are being subsidized. So I was expecting that the department will subsidize Ms. Ncube even before.
Why didn't you make sure it happens before you say buses must go to Life Esidimeni to move patients? Why didn't you make sure?
That's what I'm going. We, as the project team, will go to the meeting every 2 weeks, and it's presented. The people who move the patients, they were also in the meeting, the emergency services justice. They knew of the plan to move the patient. The people who had to pay, they were also part of the project team. They know about that. However, as the provincial director for mental health, I followed them up to say how far we with the payment, and to the level of phoning and checking to the people who are above, outside our department. So what I could do within my reach, I've done. And secondly, when we realized that we organized one company to provide them with clothing, we organized one company to provide them with meals, and then we also ask, there is a letter written to the district and all hospitals to say, where the NGO will need support, please support them. So I could do what is within my directorate, Justice. I can't do what is outside my directorate.
No, you could have told them not to move any patients until there was food where they were going to end up. You could have, it was in your power to say not today until finance pays the staff. You know, yesterday only, doctor, we had evidence of a lady near the Val who was scrounging around at hotels for leftovers of food to give to patients. Only yesterday in evidence, because she was not receiving stipend. Why would you, you'll hear other council will put it to you, in Kalinen, in Siabadinga, donations going to communities, asking for food. Why did you not make sure that those basic things are there before? You send out buses and bakkies to pick up people and move them around. I haven't heard your answer.
I said we wrote a letter to ask if the NGOs can be paid up front, and it was not successful. Secondly, during the termination, no patient was taken away with a bag because I had teams from Life Esidimeni facilities until the last patient was out of Life Esidimeni.
Advocate Gina.
Thank you, Justice. Just one last point on this one. 2681, on the same page, the last NGO appearing on the first table. It will be Anchor House, and the type of services they offered to render child residential facility, and they said they had the capacity to take 2 to 3, the number of beds. And now if you go 2681. Now this information was given to your team in January 2016. And then in April, the certificate, the license appears on 2385.
And 2681.
2385, that's the license. And the information is on 2681. Then on the first day of April, you issued the NGO with a license to take 150, and you specify that it's a child residential care facility. Are you on the certificate, Doctor?
I've got 2685.
Yeah, 2681.
2681. Okay, I found it.
Yes. So 2681, the information that she gave was that she would like to, the services that she could offer would be child residential facility for 223 people in January 2016. And then on the first day of April 2016, you issued her with a license, indeed, for a child residential care facility for 150 people in Calafo.
Sorry, Justice, which page is that one?
2385, same file.
385.
It's just the license you have issued, man.
Two, 385.
Sure. 2385.
2385.
I'm almost there. Okay.
Yes. So you issued her with a license to operate from Calafong Heights to run a child residential care facility of 150. Yes.
That's correct.
Yes. Now, her evidence was that she actually received adults, males and females, not children. And she was operating from Cullinan Care and Rehabilitation Center.
That's correct.
And you said your understanding is that people who are mentally ill can be classified as children.
Correct.
But you can see that her license is different from the license that I showed you for Precious Angels, because Precious Angels simply says males and females, and this one says child residential care facility.
Yes. Like when you speak about child residential, it also includes female and male child residential in terms of mental disability. And depending, there are other variables that you need to look at, depending on what type of child that are disabled. Can they move? Can they walk? So those are the areas that have been taken into consideration when when she is licensed for child. Then you need to look at what child, and according to condition. It's not just like any child that we just take from the street, according to condition and severity of the condition.
You know, the evidence of Ms. Ncube and also the CEO of NK House was that patients were imposed on them. Do you wish to comment on that?
That was untrue. No one imposed patients on them. They were even not so happy when Galafon cannot open. I've got pictures for Galafon. You can see the outside one.
Even the social worker from Cullinan Care and Rehabilitation Center also gave the same evidence that patients were imposed on them. In actual fact, they said by you as a person.
Imposed on Enka and Precious Angels by me.
Enka, CCRC, Siabadinga, and Precious Angels.
That's pure lies. I told you I don't know anything about the occupation of Siabadinga. I knew later.
On day one. All this and more. Should we go to sports? But for now, it's back to Elvis for the news.
That was a short break from Life Esidimeni. The arbitration process as the suspended Gauteng Mental Health Director, Dr. Makgabo Manamela, has taken the stand at the arbitration hearings in Parktown here in Johannesburg. Manamela was booked off, as you can recall, on Tuesday when she was meant to be testifying. She has now indicated that she is ready to proceed. At least 143 mentally ill patients died after being moved from Life Esidimeni to unregistered NGOs under the then Health MEC Kodani Mashlangu. The arbitrator, Justice Dikgang Moseneke, is taking Manamela through 2015 documents which outline the plans for the patients who were housed at Life Esidimeni. Let's go there live.
Do you know anything about that?
When I said to you I don't know anything about imposing patient to Siabadinga, you asked me about.
Do you know if they occupied 4 wards?
I know that they occupied 3 wards.
And then her evidence was that you went there and you personally pushed beds with patients from 1 ward to the 2 wards to make and you mixed males and females in the process to open space for Enka House.
We never mixed the patient for that, for Siabadinga, because if you want me to take you through what happened with Siabadinga, because I don't want you to interject.
No, the answer, the question is, did you mix patients? Did you push beds to make space for Enka House?
No, I didn't push beds, but I advised the team that are there to move the patient while I was still there. Why I did that? Because the CEO of Siabadinga, Miss Noel, was not answering the phone. But immediately, because we wanted to discuss that with her, to say, there is 1 ward you use as laundry, and there were napkins, all the dead were there. And there is 1 ward that is vacant. So can we say the other ward that has got 17 patients and some patient went on LOA, when the patient become better, they start to go home on LOA. So when I called her, she didn't answer the phone. I wanted to discuss that with her. Then I asked that, what can we do with the team that were there? And then we said, okay, let's see how we can put the patient. And the team that were there, they did put the patient. And I was there. I checked the patient thereafter.
So
I also...
If I may interject, so you are saying in a nutshell that the CEO of Siabadinga and Enka House and the social work from CCRC are not telling the truth when they say that the patients were actually in 1 ward, females and males. They're not telling the truth.
No, now you are giving me something else. I was answering, they were not telling the truth when they said I imposed patient on them. Then you touch on Siabadinga, and I explained Siabadinga. They were not telling the truth that I imposed the patient on them. That is not true.
Okay.
Well, before you walk away from this license, Council, page 2385, we know you issued that license.
That's correct, Justice.
450 mental health care users.
That's correct, Justice.
Severe, profound intellectual disability is the scope of the license. And you say you issued it because you considered the patients to be like children.
That's how it is, Justice.
And the license was to Anchor House. The CEO of Anchor House came here and said she was never housed at California Heights.
That's correct, Justice.
Why did you issue the license to a premise that did not exist?
Like I said yesterday, that it appears that people, as they were working on that, for them to be able to be paid, I think the error that the NGO manager was not to remove the word Galafon. If you go and check the SLA, it's written and signed for Kalinen Care and Rehab. It was just an error.
No, Sis Nkarabe. No,
ke a le araba, Justice.
Lang kwa sis.
Ke le kwa ha botse gore a ke re ke a tlhalosa.
Ka tlhompho ntheletše o nkarabe mma. Why did you issue a license for a premise that does not exist?
Like I said, the license...
Or was not occupied or used.
Okay. The license were prepared to my office, and I look at what has happened. Like I'm saying to you, it was an error. Because although we gave them the license, these people at Kalinen, Anchor, didn't occupy Kalinen during April.
I'm saying, do you understand your responsibility under the law?
I understand it well.
You are giving permission for somebody or a body to take into their custody with severe intellectual disability. You're giving them that authority by law to look after them against payment. And the law has specified how you do it when you issue a license. Why would you do it so haphazardly? Why wouldn't you make sure that the facts are suitable for patients? That is my question.
Like I said, Justice, I think that issue of Kalafon was an overlook. I must admit, it was an overlook because the other areas that were required, we had the place which was done and assessed by ourselves and the clinician. We had their numbers of staff. I think it was an overlook to still have it as Kalafon. Yes. So we can get it from the
But we're talking about lives of people with severe intellectual impairment. And what was the consequence, you remember, of this defective license? Anchor went where? To Kalinen, right?
That's correct, Justice.
On whose instructions? We have that all on evidence. I just wanted to confirm it. And you instructed the CEO to take out some patients out of Kalinen to make way for the patients that you ordered should come there.
Myself, Justice, ordered the CEO, myself instructed.
That is the evidence before me.
Yes, it doesn't mean the evidence before you are correct evidence.
Who?
No, if there are correct evidence, why am I here?
Okay, you tell us, how did it happen?
Yes, like
you issue a license to somebody called Enka. They have no premises. That is discovered. You say it was a human error. And then what happened?
Okay. What happened, Justice, was that when we renovated Kalinen Care Center, it was planned that there were a lot of patients in Kalinen Care Center who didn't have families and who families may not be able to take care of. So when we renovated that, the issue was that those who Kalinen knew that they need to be at home or at the NGOs, because when you talk about patient with intellectual disability.
I don't want explanations first.
No,
say what happened, and you can tell me why it happened.
Okay, I'm giving you
Let's
what
not
happened.
mix the two.
Okay,
what happened and why may be the second thing.
Okay,
first
what
tell
happened?
Me.
We renovated the ward.
Yes.
When we still have, the ward was evaluated and was signed off as the eligible ward. A CEO took the patient from Kalinen to Siabadinga.
On whose instructions? The CEO just got this bright idea?
No, it's not my instruction. It's not my instruction because we know one of the NGO that was supposed to occupy where the Siabadinga was Love Disciples. So CEO did it on herself and placed the patient there in good hope to say those who are coming from Life Esidimeni who cannot go into the NGO will be in the Kalinen.
So
that's
the CEO
why.
made the decision not on your instructions?
No, not on my instruction.
And you go there and you help to inspect the place. We are told you even pushed beds around yourself. No, they were here. They have testified. People
yes,
from
and I hear what you are saying, Justice. Everyone will have to protect their skin. The 100 beds, no, that is true. The 100 beds was renovated by department, not by myself. That's number one.
But who said that patients of Enka may go to Kalinen?
On Kalinen, on Enka may go to Kalinen?
Yes.
Now
we know that no premises.
We lived, yeah, the anchor. Let me come. You are clear with the
That's my question from the beginning.
No, the beginning you said the Siabadinga Justice. I was answering the Siabadinga.
And we talk
now
about the license and Enka, the license you signed.
Okay.
With no premises.
Okay, let me explain the Enka. When we were busy with the placing, the team, the NGO team, we're also going to see the patient where they're placed. They found that there can be two wards in the renovated ward of Kalinen that can accommodate some patient. They went and speak to the CEO of Siabadinga, and she said she cannot accommodate any more patient. And they phoned me. They asked me that because she cannot accommodate any more patient, and the resources, whatever she had, is only that. Can we get one of the 4 NGOs who are willing to occupy Kalinen and occupy Kalinen? I said, if the CEO said that, I don't have a problem. I took my time and called the CEO of Siabadinga to find out, actually, the Kalinen one, where are the people whom we agreed that they will take 100 patients. She said they are no longer there, it's another NGO. And I was surprised. Another NGO, what NGO? She started to say, I will tell you. And I said to her, okay, I learned that another NGO that you say is there, which we don't know, but we need the other beds that they cannot use. Can I have the number for the CEO of the person? She gave it to me. I called the lady. At times I couldn't get hold of her until I got hold of her. And I asked myself, after I was told that they think of another NGO, can we bring other patients to make the total of 100? She said no.
Patients under your care end up with an NGO you know nothing about.
Yes.
How did that happen?
It happened from the CEO of Cullinan. I think you can ask the CEO of Cullinan that, because I know of the NGO called Love Disabled. Justice, we know that things do happen at times, but it happened. I didn't know. And for the first time, let me just pause there. I didn't know about the Siabadinga.
And what about the poor patients?
Yeah, that was my concern. That's why I took initiative to call the CEO of Siabadinga.
And who would have got the patients there from Life Esidimeni?
The whole
on
premises,
whose instructions?
The whole premises on the termination terms was going to be accommodating patients from Cullinan Care, those 100 beds.
Who ordered that the patients at Cullinan be discharged?
The patient at Cullinan are discharged within the hospital. It was not me. I'm not working in the hospital. The CEO and the multidisciplinary team identified which patient are supposed to be discharged to the renovated bed.
You know nothing about
No, I don't know, because I was at strategic level.
You had no hand in it. You didn't give any instructions.
No, I didn't give instruction. What I know was the Love Disabled will be the NGO that will occupy the place, because we took them through the process of managing NGO.
And the executive management of CCRC are clearly untruthful when they say you gave them the instructions.
To take patients from them to Siabadinga.
From Life Esidimeni to Cullinan, and that Cullinan must discharge patients to make room for patients that were to be placed.
No, that report, the CEO told me that she will do it that way. And there was nothing wrong, because her multidisciplinary team identified those patients that the family cannot take care of, and those who doesn't have families.
Nothing wrong. How many people?
When she said that, there was nothing wrong, provided the NGO that is going to manage that place will be taken through the process. And she came with them in our first meeting.
How many people died after all what you said was nothing wrong at Siabadinga?
Chief Justice, I didn't say there's nothing wrong. I'm saying Siabadinga was not assessed, but the premises was eligible because it was assessed, even the clinician assessed it.
How many people died at Siabadinga?
The last time I knew, when I was still at the department, I think 9 patients died at Siabadinga. But the report have been going on. I cannot be his exact number. But let me tell you this, Justice. The first time that the CEO really tell me the truth about Siabadinga, I didn't know about, she was going up and, let me not do that. But one patient died. She reported, and I said, CEO, you are reporting me that there is one patient who died in Siabadinga. Where are those people you brought to the meeting of NGO? And she said there is someone else. Then what I did, we started to check Siabadinga. Where is it coming from? Was it an NGO? The team went and found out. And I sent the man that I wrote a letter to the Miss Masondo to say, can I get the board to go investigate the death in Siabadinga? So I didn't fold my hands, Justice, and say, let the patient should just die. I didn't. It was painful for me as well.
Thank you, Justice. Ma'am, just to follow up on the licenses. On Monday, you said that, or rather, let me ask it differently. So the NGOs that receive patients from Life Esidimeni, you made sure that they were all licensed, am I correct?
Yes.
There was no NGO other than Siabadinga, you said so on Monday, that received patients from Life Esidimeni, which was not licensed.
According to my knowledge, Council, it was like that.
Yes. Okay, if you could please open file number 7, page 2478. I will just take you through some of the assessment or inspections which were conducted by your department, but post-placement. Yes. So this is in respect of Shama House. Do you remember the NGO by the name of Shama House?
Yes, Council.
Yes. The date of the inspection appears at the bottom as 21 July 2016. Can you see that?
Yes, Council.
Yeah, if you tell, or rather, whilst you are there, it would appear that they were operating from plot 45 in writing. Do you see that? So if you page over to page 2479, my apologies. Yeah, 2479. On the notes that are written by a pen, manuscript, it says not receiving subsidy at this stage. Do you see that?
Yes, Council.
Yes. And then if you go to page 2480, right on top, it says no license and not receiving subsidies.
Have you found that?
Yes, I found it. I found it. I found it.
2480. Now, this information was recorded by your team who did the inspection post-placement. So they are saying that Shama House did not have a license. Do you wish to comment?
My comment will be Shama House, if he didn't have the license, I think the best people to comment will be the district, because we signed all the license from the head office and give it to the district to issue it. That's number one. Number two, Shama had already had patients that they are not receiving subsidy, and those patients were not even licensed, that we licensed as we were busy with the project.
Yes. Also, we checked on the licenses that we received from the department, all the copies of the licenses that we received from the department. We could not find any for Shama House, coincidentally.
That I don't know, but what I know is that it was presented to me. We went even during NGO marathon. Some of the family, I think they were there. We look at that, and the team that we're dealing with that need to give you the license, because I was not part of compiling this document, but there was a license that was issued. I remember very well, because they started on themselves. When we look at we're trying to find the bed, we found that they are not licensed, but they were receiving the patient, and we said we must correct that.
Let me ask this question before I continue. The assessments, earlier on Monday, you said there were assessments that were conducted before the licenses were issued. Am I correct?
Yes.
And then you said, I referred you to some assessments which were done in July. You said those were post-placement assessments. Yes. So this assessment, this is one of the post-placement assessments. Would they be given to you? Would they be submitted to you? Or to any of the department seniors?
At that time, I don't know the system now. At that time, any license will be issued from mental health directorate.
I mean the assessments.
Yes, the assessment they will be given, especially if it's new, they will be given to my office.
And then so that you could check if there's compliance, and if there's non-compliance, you could assist and rectify.
Yes, that's why I know of Sama that they had around 50 patients receiving them with no license. They were only given license during the process, and we went. It's one of the NGO that I managed to go with the psychiatrist, if I'm not mistaken, and the family committee members.
If you look at towards the bottom there, the second last table, it says that they had 50 plus 60 patients, and then there's a note that says 50 patients from Life Esidimeni.
Correct.
You see that, okay. And then if you...
How would the patients get there? How would they get to Shama House?
They were transported to Shama House, like other patients. This is the 50 patients.
On whose authority?
On the authority that was made during the termination.
No, they have no license, and they get to a place which is where they're supposed to be looked after. Who would have made that possible?
Okay, Justice, I think now you refer for the ones we found there with no license.
No, from Esidimeni.
No, they from Esidimeni were not placed there without license. Even when we had to place Esidimeni patient, we had now to ensure that every patient that is there is amongst the one that licensed, and then it made their license to 110. But before that, they had...
Council and the question. Just listen to with the question put to you. A report by your team. Would you try again, Council? The number of people who were there and the part from Life Esidimeni.
Thank you, Justice. The report, we have already established that the report was by your team, and then it would be submitted to your department. The report says that Shama House did not have a license. They had 50 plus 60 patients, so they had 110 patients. Of the 110, 50 came from Life Esidimeni.
Let's pause right there. Would you explain that?
That's what I was explaining, that before, this is post-evaluation. We signed, from my office, the license was issued and given to the district. It means maybe when these people went there, the district didn't show, I don't know. Didn't issue the license to Shama, I don't know. But what I know was that the license were already given to the district, because some of the NGO are known by the district. We know them when we read on paper, but they know the NGOs.
Earlier on, you said there was only one institution that was not issued by a license, and it was Siabadinga.
Correct.
Now, it is clear that the Shama House did not have a license. This information comes from your own department, who conducted the assessment immediately after placement. I will move on. Page 2481.
You must tell me how those patients got there. My focus is on patients.
Yes, my
how
focus
did
is
the patients get there? Who instructed that somebody must fetch them from Life Esidimeni and take them to Shama House, which is unlicensed and not fit for purpose? How did that happen?
Can I also ask that you are saying it's from my office, and I don't see the signature here. But the truth is that if they go there, they don't find a license. They can't write there is a license. But I know why I know about Shama, because it was reported that Shama was operating with 60 patients without license. It was not known. It was like any other NGOs that are operating, even Bosiabadinga, where they were before they come to Kalinen. So, but when we went, when it was reported, we had to give the license for the whole patients, because we found that they are mentally ill patients. That's why I know about Shama.
No, ma'am. How did the patients from Life Esidimeni end up at Shama House?
The patient...
Who transported them there? On whose instruction?
On the instruction that was made on the termination letter, that the patient must be out of Life Esidimeni by the 30th of June. And the project team identified the NGOs. We cannot assign this project to one person to say, so-and-so did that, so-and-so gave instruction, because it was a project. When we went there, like I said, I repeated, even the family member, I believe that we went to Kalinen, and then we moved to
I'm going to try again. How did patients from Life Esidimeni end up at Shama House? Let's focus on the patient.
Patients
the
were
exposure
transported.
that they would have had to confront. How did they get there? On whose instructions?
I said it, the justice. I said the instruction was because of the termination. It was a project issue managed by project team. And by that time, the people who were placing, they knew exactly how many patients will go to Shama, how many patients will go to Kalinen, and how many patients will go where, according to the bed that was given by the district.
And you had nothing to do with that decision to get patients to Shama House?
I was not transporting the patient, but I was part of the project team. So I have to check. That's why I checked SAMA, and when it was reported to me, they've got 50, 60 patients not licensed.
Now, you as head of mental health care, how would you allow the project team to send patients with mental disability to Shama House, which you had not issued with a license?
No, correction was that I issued the license. The district submitted the document, I issued the license. As where the license was at that time, I don't know. And because it was one of the part of termination, I couldn't say don't take patient to Shama. If the report was saying Shama is given license, maybe it's one the district can tell us what was the license at that time.
You go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you, Justice. If you go to page...
The first. But there is a chief, a coordinator.
Well, 2481.
2481.
Right at the right corner there, it says manager dispense medicine. A manager is the one who was giving medication to the patients. And if you go to 2484, the first paragraph, food, household activities. But the gist,
But what's the question? What's the question to the...
The gist of the question is that this was not a suitable facility for the patients. Do you agree?
I can only talk to when before we
making their own food.
Yes, I can only talk to before we place the patient, because I was at that strategic level. So after that, how they were doing that, then if I found that they are using patient, then that will be something else. But now, by the time they want me to sign a license, the area was assessed. So at that time. So after that, things change, and I
take a tea break.
The bottom was lying around outside. And on that very table, you could see a lot of stuff that is ticked as not suitable for the patients. Wash hand basin, not suitable. Bath towels, baths and showers, not suitable. Cooking and dining facilities, not suitable. The list goes on.
Your own, because they are from the district. They are of evaluation. It was, if during the process things fall apart, and I'm made aware, there are a lot of NGOs that we went from the province. Actually, we start with them and close those NGOs. So I cannot accept justice when we said I just don't care. I can't accept that.
You will be asked many, many more questions there, and we'll see what you accept or you don't. But it's going to be a long, long time to explain these deaths and how they happened and your role in them. We are adjourned for tea till 12 o'clock.
Here in South Africa, I just got to have time in the saddle, fly as much as possible, keep my G fitness up, and obviously my physical fitness as well.
What we're looking at right now is the ballet in the sky, as you talk about. This is the aerobatics, and it's not the same as the race. We'll be sure to make sure that...
South African Championship, I've competed all over the world, and you know, I'm fortunate enough that they've recognized my accolades, and yeah, I was handpicked by them. So yeah, I'm very, very lucky.
I mean, you've been winning championships for some time now. The first one, I mean, you won on your birthday. You won your first solo championship. Lead one when you were 12. Quite a long wait to now when you're in this space. Tell us a little bit about the perseverance that you need, and as well as patience that you need in this kind of sport.
Yeah, look, I mean, with any sport, to get good at anything, there's sacrifice, you know, so whether it comes from, you know, it's all relative, you know, so if you want something bad enough, you'll do what it takes to get there.
All right, cool. And then a little bit more about the race itself. When do you start racing for real? Because I do believe that there's a bit of a hiatus between now and the very first race.
That's it. So first race is in Abu Dhabi in Feb next year. A new type of...
How much racing are you planning to be doing there, if it...
Guys, attend the briefing. It was quite a cool idea for me to go to the briefing, see what it's all about. You know, I'm a newbie. Yeah, I'm the rookie. So yeah, I got to learn, man.
Yeah, now you're up.
You know, when you put your helmet on, you're there to race, you're there to win. So regardless of what, you know, we're all there to do our best. But yeah, I'm going into it with an open mind. So let's see what I can do with it.
One of the things that stands out as a racer. Tell us a bit about that.
Aerobatics is substantially more than what they would be in the racing, and a lot more sustained. With the racing, you sort of... It's only positive G, there's no real negative G. So you're probably looking at around about 8 or 9 G in the turnaround maneuvers, and that'll probably be for maybe half a second.
Positive G, negative G. People that are not in the know, give us an understanding. Your seat and pushing you straight out of your seat with your seatbelt holding you and nothing else.
That's it.
That's insane. That's insane. I mean, I can imagine that Formula 1 racing car drivers would go through similar Gs, or not at all?
Half, actually.
Half?
Yeah, and to throw another spin on things.
She might be a little lighter than somebody has same height.
Yeah.
Does she have any advantages or disadvantages?
Above, in December, I'll be attending the DTC, which is a Red Bull's diagnostic training center in Austria, and they help us do that. They put us in a lab, they put us through fitness, they do everything from measuring brainwaves to all the rest of it, and they actually try and assist us in
Baleka Mbete taught in Babana in Swaziland, worked for the African National Congress, several African cities, including Dar es Salaam, Nairobi, Gaborone. First Secretary General of the ANC Women's League after the unbanning of the ANC United States for her distinct...
Quite a burden on one's shoulders, but I guess also...
None of the universities, however, could back up their theories with sufficient evidence.
Today, it is accepted that it is a meteorite impact structure, and it is the largest and the oldest meteorite impact structure so far found on Earth. What makes it unique is the fact that the geological formations have been brought up to the surface.
The site attracts domestic and international geologists because of Rutherford Dome's unique geology. Rocks such as the granophyre are only found here. Until 1978, granite was mined in the area before mining operations ceased. The granite was shipped to Italy for cutting and polishing before being sold in Europe. The granite rocks were used for kitchen and bathroom tiling. Rutherford Dome's rock formations are a subject of study even to this day.
What has happened with the impact of the meteorite is some of the rocks have melted, some of the rocks have been shattered, some of them been shocked, some of it been thrown out and overturned. So a lot of things happened to the rocks. Because of the high level of erosion, these rocks have been exposed, and you can observe them. And without drilling a hole in the ground or without searching, you'll find these things lying on surface. You have to get permission from the landowner or be accompanied by a guide that takes you into the property and explain to you the impact and the effects of the impact and what you see. Because if you don't get somebody to explain that to you, You'll look at the environment, you'll look at the rocks, but you won't know what it all means.
The Vredefort Dome is also a popular destination for local school trips. While on these educational tours, learners get field experiences on specific subjects.
All of them here are grade 10 and 11 geography students, and I think one of our jobs is we must try and instill that love for geography in them. And to have this so close by to the school, it was the perfect opportunity.
I've learned a lot about my nation's heritage and how we got here and why we're here, and the things that have affected us that we didn't really pay much attention to, but we found out that a lot of things that happen in this world still affect us to this day. What I found fascinating about this area was how the land was still able to repair itself after such a great damage happened here.
A group of volunteers keep Bare's museum operational and dependent solely on donations for its survival.